You know, I just couldn't help but thinking about this weekend. Here it is, Memorial Day. And I'm thinking about all of the, 6,800, 6,700 military men, women who have lost their lives in the Iraq and Afghanistan war over the last several years, and all of the families that have been impacted by those two wars that we have fought, plus all of the other skirmishes that we've had during this same time. And I was really thinking quite a bit about it because what we've been seeing lately in the mainstream press regarding the 2016 presidential election, the GOP candidates have been asked recently, especially Jeb Bush made the big snafu whenever he was on the Fox News program, The Kelly File, and he was asked directly, would he invade Iraq knowing what he knows now? And that, of course, caused a firestorm. In fact, if you haven't heard it, I have a clip here. I'll play this for you. But I have some comments that I want to talk about, so let's roll the tape.
On the subject of Iraq, obviously very controversial, knowing what we know now, would you have authorized the invasion?
I would have, and so would have Hillary Clinton, just to remind everybody, and so would have almost everybody that was confronted with the intelligence they got.
You don't think it was a mistake?
In retrospect, the intelligence that everybody saw, that the world saw, not just the United States, was faulty. And in retrospect, once we invaded and took out Saddam Hussein, we didn't focus on security first. And the Iraqis, in this incredibly insecure environment, turned on the United States military because there was no security for themselves and their families. By the way, guess who thinks that those mistakes took place as well? George W. Bush.
Your brother.
Yeah, I mean, so just for the newsflash to the world, if they're trying to find places where there's big space between me and my brother, this might not be one of those.
All right, super defensive answer, certainly, and you can even tell at the very beginning. I mean, listen to what he says, the very first sentence.
I would have, and so would have Hillary Clinton.
I would have, and so would have Hillary Clinton. Well, Hillary Clinton's not in the room, right? It's just Jeb Bush, and he's being asked to answer a very, very simple question. Knowing what you know now, would you invade Iraq? And he says, yep, I would have, and Hillary Clinton would have too. Well, that turns out to be not so true, because just recently Hillary had this to say about whether she would be interested in invading Iraq, knowing what she knows now.
I know that there have been a lot of questions about Iraq posed to candidates over the last weeks. I've made it very clear that I made a mistake, plain and simple. And I have written about it in my book. I've talked about it in the past. And, what we now see is a very different and very dangerous situation. The United States is doing what it can, but ultimately this has to be a struggle that the Iraqi government and the Iraqi people are determined to win for themselves.
All right, so Hillary says, no, I wouldn't have invaded Iraq now, knowing what I know now. This brings up the question, by the way, with Jeb Bush, who, by the way, is no friend of those who love liberty. He thinks that Obama's best crowning moment in the White House has been his defense of the NSA. Here, I'll let you hear the clip yourself. Roll the tape.
If you were to look back at the last, now 7 years almost, what's been the best part of the Obama administration?
I would say the best part of the Obama administration would be his continuance of the protections of the homeland using, the big metadata programs, the NSA being enhanced.
All right, so that's what Jeb Bush thinks has been Obama's best contribution to the country, has been the bulk data collection that he has refused to intervene with and stop. All right, so that gives you some idea of what Jeb Bush really likes and what kind of president he's going to be. By the way, after realizing that he did not understand this question, I started to scratch my head and wonder, what if Jeb Bush is not the smart brother? What if he's the dumb brother? I mean, we have been led to believe for so long that George was the dumb brother, and Jeb wears the glasses, he's the smart brother. What if Jeb is actually the dumb brother? That's a scary thought, isn't it? Well, okay, now, Jeb was not the only one who really flubbed his answer on Iraq. Senator Marco Rubio, who is also running for the GOP nomination in 2016, has been dancing all around this question. Here is Senator Rubio answering whether we should have invaded Iraq. Was it a mistake? Take one.
Was it a mistake to go to war in Iraq?
No, I don't believe it was. The world is a better place because Saddam Hussein doesn't run Iraq.
All right, so let's do take two. Marco Rubio answers the question again. Roll the tape.
After finding out there were no weapons of mass destruction, would you, if you knew that, have been in favor of the Iraqi invasion?
Well, not only would I not have been in favor of it, President Bush would not have been in favor of it. And he said so.
No, he didn't. See, this is the whole thing. Why is Marco Rubio bringing up George Bush as if George Bush is in the room? The question is directly to Senator Marco Rubio. Would you, knowing what you know now, this is the same thing that was asked Jeb Bush. Very simple question. Knowing what you know now, would you do it? And instead of just saying, no, I wouldn't have done it, it was a mistake, he says, I wouldn't have done it, and neither would have George W. Bush. But that's a lie. That's a complete lie. Because take a listen to this. This is in 2008. 5 years after the invasion of Iraq, a reporter asks Bush if he has any regrets. Roll the tape.
Mr. President, on the way to Europe, you gave a very interesting interview for the Times newspaper in which you basically said that you regret your war rhetoric. Now I'm wondering, do you actually just regret your war rhetoric, or do you regret having gone to war with Iraq?
I don't regret it at all.
Doesn't regret it at all. Now, that was back in 2008, so I can hear some of you saying, oh, yeah, but Jerry, that was 2008. Well, what about 2014? Here is a clip from 2014, Bob Schieffer on CBS asking George W. Bush, any regrets, Mr. President?
Do you have any regrets about that, Mr. President? Well, no, I have regrets that, I mean, do you ever feel that maybe it was the wrong decision?
No, I think it was the right decision. My regret is that a violent group of people have risen up again. This is Al-Qaeda plus.
Al-Qaeda plus. That's the major concern and regret that George W. Bush has. Nothing about the faulty intelligence, quote unquote. Nothing about how he didn't know that they had weapons of mass destruction. Had he known that they didn't, that he would not have wanted to enter. It was a really bad idea. None of that. Bush stands by the Iraq war, and yet Senator Marco Rubio says this.
Well, not only would I not have been in favor of it, President Bush would not have been in favor of it. And he said so. Just
a straight out liar. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. And you're going to be hearing lots and lots and lots and lots of lies coming out of this 2016 campaign. From both sides of the aisle, we're going to be hearing lie after lie after lie. Because you know why? They know that most voters are low information voters. So whenever Jeb Bush answers a question about Iraq, he says, oh yeah, I would have dropped bombs, and so would have Hillary Clinton. See, everything's better now. Now, first of all, think about how stupid that logic is. Because what you're saying is that yes, I would have and my arch enemy would have, right? How is that supposed to put Hillary Clinton down? I mean, is that supposed to be, I mean, are you, what's the point? Why would you make a comment like that? I don't even understand where that was going. But second of all, Marco Rubio, complete moron, making the statement that George W. Bush thought the Iraq war was a mistake because of the bad intelligence. That's never, ever, ever been uttered. So I have no clue what he's talking about. He's just simply lying to the American people, and most people aren't calling. In fact, I haven't even seen a single media outlet cover this particular topic about why are these people making this up? A, Jeb Bush lied about Hillary Clinton, forced her into the question even though she wasn't being questioned, and Marco Rubio drags George W. Bush into his question, completely lying about him, trying to get him off the hook. Well, anyway, listen to the rest of this exchange, because now Marco Rubio is being quizzed on his apparent flip-flop of, no, we should definitely have entered into Iraq, and then suddenly, no, I think we should not have gone into Iraq, and Bush agrees with me, which is a complete lie. So Chris Wallace on Fox News corners Marco Rubio and says, no, wait a minute, you're flip-flopping, and it's real obvious. Listen to how Marco Rubio tries to wiggle his way out of this. It's terrible. Roll the tape.
Senator, isn't that a flip? 6 weeks ago, it made sense to invade Iraq in 2003. Now you say it was a mistake.
No, they're two different questions. It was not a mistake. The president, based on, this is the way the real world works, the president, based on the information that was provided
But she was saying based on the information.
No, but look, there's
She was saying based on what we know now.
Well, based on what we know now, a lot of things. Based on what we know now, I wouldn't have, thought Manny Pacquiao was going to beat in that fight a couple of weeks ago.
You got asked the same question, and you said it made sense.
No, it was not the same question. The question was whether it was a mistake, and my answer was it's not a mistake. I still say it was not a mistake, because the president was presented with intelligence that said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It was governed by a man who had committed atrocities in the past with weapons of mass destruction.
But what she asked you was it a mistake to go to war with Iraq?
It was not a mistake, given the fact that what the president knew at the time.
No, she didn't say that. She just said, was it a mistake?
That's not the same question. The question I was asked is what you know now. Well, based on what we know now, I think everyone agrees.
Was it a mistake? Was it a mistake to go to war with Iraq?
I'm
asking you to...
Yeah, I understand, but it's not the same question.
But that's the question I'm asking you. Was it a mistake to go to...
It was not a mistake for the president to decide to go into Iraq, because at the time he was told...
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you...
In hindsight, yeah.
All right, this is just zany. I got to stop it for a minute. But first of all, comparing the Iraq war being a mistake to a lot of things can happen in retrospect, like he brings up the Manny Pacquiao fight. Well, that's completely dishonoring, I think, to most veterans out there, military veterans, because, you know, in one case, you have 7,000 people, nearly 7,000 people dead, American citizens, and hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million dead Iraqi civilians. That's not quite the same thing as a prize fight, Senator Rubio. But let's let him continue as he tries to squirm his way out of this question. Roll the tape.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you...
In hindsight. Yes. Well, the world is a better place because Saddam Hussein is not there.
So
I wouldn't characterize it. But I don't understand the question you're asking.
I'm asking you, knowing everything, as we sit here in 2015...
But that's not the way presidents don't... A president cannot make a decision on what someone might know in the future.
But that's what I'm asking you. Was it a mistake?
It was not a mistake for the president to go into Iraq based on the information he was provided as president.
Zany. I mean, totally zany these guys are. I mean, by the way, these are the same guys, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, who think, you know, having the TSA dig through your pants whenever you go on an airplane is a good idea, and digging through and sifting through your emails is a good idea, and as well, you know, tracking your phone calls. Databasing you is a really good idea, even though you've done nothing wrong and have no probable cause. I pray that neither one of these guys gets into office. I mean, I really do. This is really, really bad. Both of them evade the question. Both of them talk about other people during their answers because they don't want to answer a straight question. How can you have a president who can't even answer a very straightforward question? We just went to war, you know, back in 2003 with a country. Do you think that was a good idea? Right? And they can't answer the question. They're like, well, we don't know because, you know, it all depends. No, it doesn't depend. Should we have done that? Should we have sent men over to Iraq to die in order to get rid of Saddam Hussein whenever